Welcome to Awakening Heaven on Earth. Before we begin, take a moment to arrive. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to believe, and nowhere you need to go. Simply listen, contemplate, and notice what stirs and resonates within you. This is a shared space of reflection, presence, and remembrance. Now, let us begin. Welcome to this episode focused on Rebuild with Love, Unity in Systems, recommended reading. In this episode, we explore a collection of books that help us understand how systems are formed, how they shape human life, and how systems can be transformed through love, justice, wisdom, and awakened consciousness. These readings draw from science, spirituality, psychology, economics, philosophy, organizational learning, nonviolence, and social change. Together, they remind us that systems are not separate from souls. Structures reveal consciousness. Policies reveal values. Institutions reveal what a people believe about one another. And if systems are created by human consciousness, then systems can also be healed by transformed consciousness. Now let's begin. In the book, The Systems View of Life, by Fritjof Capra and Pierluigi Luisi. This important work offers a scientific and philosophical vision of life as deeply interconnected, relational, and self-organizing. It challenges the old mechanical view of the world, where life is treated as separate parts, and instead invites us to see living systems as networks of relationship, flow, feedback, and mutual dependence. Through the lens of unity, this book reminds us that separation is not only a spiritual illusion, it is also an incomplete way of seeing life. When we understand the world as a living system, we begin to create structures that honor relationship rather than domination, cooperation rather than control, and wholeness rather than fragmentation. Now let's reflect for a moment. Where in my life or work am I still treating something as separate when it is actually part of a larger living whole? In the book, Thinking in Systems, by Donella Meadows, Donella Meadows offers one of the clearest introductions to systems thinking, showing how patterns, feedback loops, delays, incentives, and mental models shape the behavior of families, organizations, economies, governments, and societies. She teaches that systems often produce results no single person intended, because the structure of the system itself shapes behavior. Through the lens of unity, this book helps us see that love must become structural, not merely personal. Good intentions are not enough if the system continues to reward fear, scarcity, extraction, or exclusion. To rebuild with love, we must learn to see the deeper patterns that shape outcomes. Consider this. What pattern or feedback loop in a system I participate in may need to be seen clearly before it can be transformed. In the book, The More Beautiful World, Our Hearts Know Is Possible, by Charles Eisenstein. This deeply reflective book challenges the story of separation that underlies many modern systems. Eisenstein suggests that much of what we call normal is built upon the belief that we are separate individuals competing for limited resources in a disconnected world. He invites readers into a new story rooted in inner being, trust, gift, and sacred relationship. Through the lens of unity, this book speaks directly to the soul of systemic transformation. It reminds us that before we can build new structures, we must first release the old story that made broken structures seem inevitable. A more beautiful world begins when the heart remembers what the mind has forgotten. We belong to one another. Consider this question. What old story of separation am I being invited to release so that a more beautiful world can become possible through me? In the book, Healing Resistance by Kazuhaga. Kazuhaga offers a powerful vision of nonviolence as a way of life, not simply a tactic for protest. Drawing from Kingian nonviolence, restorative justice, and embodied practice, this book teaches that real transformation must confront harm without dehumanizing those who have caused it. Through the lens of unity, Healing Resistance reminds us that systems are not healed by blame, hatred, or humiliation. They are healed by truth joined with love, accountability joined with dignity, and courage joined with compassion. This is the work of transforming without destroying and rebuilding without repeating. Ponder this question. Where am I being called to resist harm without surrendering my humanity, compassion, or commitment to love? In the book Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein. In Sacred Economics, Eisenstein reimagines money, value, debt, wealth, and exchange through the principles of gift, reciprocity, and inner being. He challenges the assumption that economics must be driven by scarcity, competition, and endless growth, and instead asks what an economy would look like if it reflected the sacredness of life. Through the lens of unity, this book invites us to see economics not as a cold machine, but as a moral and spiritual system. Money is not separate from consciousness. Markets are not separate from values. A loving economy would ask not only what can be gained, but what can be healed, shared, restored, and circulated for the good of all. Think on the following question for a moment. How might my relationship with money, giving, receiving, and value change if I saw economy as a sacred flow of love and care? In the book Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. This visionary book draws from nature, science fiction, activism, and community practice to explore how change emerges through relationship, adaptation, imagination, and small patterns repeated over time. Brown reminds us that what we practice at the small scale becomes the pattern for the larger world. Through the lens of unity, Emergent Strategy teaches that systemic change is not only about grand plans, it is also about how we gather, how we listen, how we practice care, how we respond to change, and how we embody the future now. The new world is built through living patterns of love. Now think about this. What small pattern of love, care, or courage can I practice consistently enough to help shape a larger transformation? in the landmark book, The Fifth Discipline, by Peter Singh. Peter Singh explores how organizations can become learning systems, capable of seeing patterns, adapting wisely, and growing through shared vision. His work shows that many organizational problems arise because people respond only to symptoms, while the deeper structure remains unseen. Through the lens of unity, this book reminds us that workplaces, institutions, and communities can become places of awakening when people learn to see the whole. Systems begin to change when individuals move from reaction to reflection, from control to shared vision, and from isolated roles to collective learning. Stop a moment and consider, where in my workplace, organization, or community am I being invited to stop reacting to symptoms and begin seeing the whole system more clearly? In the book, The Righteous Mind, by Jonathan Haidt. This work of moral psychology explores why people with different worldviews often struggle to understand one another. Haidt shows that human moral reasoning is shaped by intuition, emotion, identity, group belonging, and deeply held values. We often believe we are simply being rational when we are also protecting sacred concerns. Through the lens of unity, this book helps us approach division with humility. Systems cannot be transformed if we only condemn those who see differently. Rebuilding with love requires learning to understand the moral worlds of others, not so we can abandon truth, but so truth can be spoken in a way the heart can hear. Now let's reflect a moment. Where might I need greater humility and curiosity toward people whose values or worldview differ from mine? In the book, Justice, What's the Right Thing to Do, by Michael Sandel. Michael Sandel invites readers into the great philosophical questions behind justice, fairness, freedom, rights, responsibility, and the common good. Rather than offering easy answers, he helps us think more deeply about the moral foundations beneath public life and social systems. Through the lens of unity, this book reminds us that systems are always shaped by moral imagination. Every law, policy, and institution reflects a vision of what human beings are, what they deserve, and what society is for. To rebuild with love, we must ask not only what works, but what is worthy of the sacred dignity of all. Let's ponder the following question. What vision of human dignity is reflected in the systems I support, question, or help create? In the book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, by Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire's classic work explores education as a practice of liberation rather than control. He challenges models of education that treat people as empty containers to be filled and instead calls for dialogue, critical consciousness, and the awakening of human agency. Through the lens of unity, this book reminds us that education is never neutral. It either reinforces the systems that keep people passive, or it awakens people to their dignity, voice, responsibility, and power. To rebuild with love, education must become a pathway to freedom, wonder, participation, and shared transformation. So consider this. Where am I being invited to help awaken voice, dignity, and agency in myself or in others? in the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This beautiful work weaves indigenous wisdom, ecological science, and the sacred practice of reciprocity. Kimmerer reminds us that the earth is not a collection of resources, but a living community of beings with whom we are in relationship. She invites us to move from extraction to gratitude, from ownership to kinship, and from consumption to reciprocity. Through the lens of unity in systems, this book reminds us that every human structure must eventually answer to the wider system of life. Economies, policies, education, and governance become destructive when they forget the earth. But when systems are built from gratitude and kinship, they begin to serve life rather than consume it. Let's reflect a moment. How can the systems I participate in become more reciprocal, more grateful, and more life-giving toward the earth and future generations? As these readings come together, they form a powerful invitation. See the whole. Question the story. Understand the pattern. Heal the relationship. Transform the structure. Rebuild with love. Systems are not merely technical, they are moral, spiritual, psychological, ecological, and relational. They are built from what we believe is true about life, power, worth, scarcity, abundance, justice, and belonging. If we believe we are separate, we will build systems that divide. If we believe there is not enough, we will build systems that hoard. If we believe power must dominate, we will build systems that control. But if we remember that all are one, we can build systems that serve. If we remember that life is relationship, we can build systems that heal. If we remember that love is the blueprint, we can build structures worthy of the new earth. So before you leave this reflection, ask yourself, what system am I being called to see more clearly? What structure am I being called to question with courage and compassion? What pattern am I being called to interrupt? What possibility am I being called to imagine? And what small act of love can I bring into the system I touch today? You do not have to rebuild the whole world at once, but you can become a living blueprint. You can let your choices reflect justice. You can let your leadership reflect humility. You can let your resources circulate care. You can let your presence awaken possibility. And through you, one system, one structure, one relationship, one decision at a time, love can begin to rebuild the world. As we come to a close, remember that this journey continues in many expressions. This podcast is part of a family of partner podcasts. Awakening Heaven on Earth. The space between heaven and earth and Living Heaven on Earth are 3 companion podcasts exploring spiritual awakening from complementary perspectives. Awakening Heaven on Earth offers the core teachings and mystical reflections on unity, love, and conscious living. The space between creates room for dialogue, reflection, and lived conversation around those teachings. Living Heaven on Earth focuses on basic spiritual practices that help embody these insights in daily life. Together, they form a unified journey of understanding, experience, and integration, inviting listeners to remember their connection with the divine, with one another, and with the living world. You can find all of them available on the same podcast streaming platforms wherever you listen. And if music helps carry these teachings deeper into the heart, the Unity, Awakening Heaven on Earth album is available on all major music streaming services as a musical companion to this journey. Wherever you engage, through listening, reflection, conversation, or music, may it gently remind you you are not separate. You belong to the one life. And heaven is already unfolding within you. Until next time, walk gently, love deeply, and embody heaven on earth.